The tabletop takeaway.
Game mechanics on display.
Three designers share the stage.
Pick a genre and we'll play.
The tabletop takeaway.
Welcome back to the Tabletop Takeaway. I'm Charlie McCarran,
I'm Trevor Muller-Hagel.
I'm Ananda Gunaratna.
and this is our third episode in the series on numerical coordination games, a term we came up with, and we found three games that all use cards, numbers, and we're trying to get them in sequence cooperatively. So we are going to be talking about Hanabi,
Hanabi.
which is Japanese for fireworks. And in this game, you have a hand of cards that you hold outward towards the other players. And you'll have 3 cards in 3-player game, 4 cards in 4-player game, that kind of thing. And the cards are in 5 different suits of different colors and numbered 1 through 5. And what you're trying to do is play them from your hand without 100% knowing what the cards might be. But the other players can give you clues. And you need to work up from 1 to 5 in that order for each of the colors. And so if I have 1s in my hand, you want to give me a clue right away so that I'll play those 1s to start those different piles. But here's the trick. If I play a 1 blue and Trevor has a 1 blue and he plays that 1 blue, that is illegal. So we would...
Failure.
Yeah, we have basically 3 lives. So you have to know when to discard the cards in your hand or play them. And say... so the way this works on giving clues is really what makes it fun. So I'm looking at someone's hand and I have to give them a clue either of the colors of cards in their hand or the number in their hand. So you have to point to all the cards. Say I need to give a clue that Trevor has 3 in his hand, but I have to point to all 3s. Mm-hmm. So maybe I say, you have 2 3s, and I point to both those cards. But meanwhile, maybe we need to narrow in on telling him that it's a green 3 because we really need that one played. So then Ananda could give him a clue that says you have 3 green cards in your hand.
Oh, I have 2 green 3s.
Yeah, and then he knows. Yeah. So what am I forgetting here, guys? I think...
So the clues you can give each other are a limited resource.
Right.
That you can recover by discarding a card from your hand. The other big thing about this game is that while there are 3 1s of each color, there's only 1 5 of each color, and I believe 2 of each other number.
It's a very limited resource.
Very, very limited. So if you discard a 5, you cannot go up to 5 in that color anymore.
Right.
So you automatically kind of shoot yourself in the foot.
Yeah. And your goal is to get as high as you can in each color. A perfect game would be 25 points.
Yep.
So very rare. I don't think I've ever gotten that.
Well, and I appreciate that they have like a scoring rubric for it too, like how well you did, because that really kind of helps encourage you. Like, yeah, you didn't do perfect, but you still did pretty good, or you did, all right. You know? And you have like an idea of where you landed in the spectrum. Because if you don't do a perfect game, you didn't lose.
Right.
Just like, in Galaxy Trucker, as long as you made money, you won.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a good thing to have, especially in cooperative games. If there is like scales of success, it can kind of give people a little bit of a nudge of where they landed.
Yeah.
I like that personally.
Yeah.
And I think this was one of the first games I really enjoyed where I started to think, oh, maybe I do like cooperative games. Because I kind of had this thing in my head, like, I don't know, I had played Arkham Horror and like bigger cooperative games with really no communication limits. And I think I started to realize, oh, I like these small cooperative games that have limited communication, and you really have to make really interesting decisions with just one action you do on your turn.
Yeah.
I either give a clue or play a card or discard a card. But the depth of it is really interesting.
Yeah.
What kind of clue do you give? Do you hint? Because all I tell you is, oh, you have a 1 in your hand, but you don't know if it's, should I play that 1? Because...
Unless Ananda tells you you have a 1 in your hand, then you know if you should play it or not.
Ananda may have been doing some
You have one
hinting.
1. You have 1 1.
So the nice so I mean, okay, body language and tone aside, one of the cool things about the communication mechanic is there is actually a lot of information that you can infer beyond just what's stated, because the context also matters a lot. You know, like the current state of the game. If we need a 2 and someone tells you you have 1 2, that's very different than if, you know, like all of the 2s are out and someone says you have a 2, or if, you know, everything is on, or there's no 1s on the board and someone says you have a 2. All of those mean something very different.
Yeah.
This is
and not giving someone a clue
Yes.
also means something. Like,
that's right. Like
Trevor had a terrible hand, and we
Most
stopped
of the
giving
game.
him clues,
Yeah.
so he would just discard his cards.
Yeah. It's super cool. It makes me think a little bit of The Crew, because obviously giving a clue in that is a similar thing of like, it's not just what information is conveyed, it's also when did you do this, you know, why did you give us this information. There's a lot that you can infer, but it's way better in Hanabi because you can just do this all the time.
Yeah.
Whereas in The Crew, you can only do it once per game. So I really like that the limited communication is something you can engage with repeatedly in the game.
And regain it too, almost like healing from the game, where you have the ability to kind of manipulate, like, hey, well, that's actually more of a choice in Hanabi. 'Cause you can do it whenever, but if you do a 5, then you've already kind of shot yourself in the foot. Or if you do a card that's already used the other one that's in discard, but you don't know what it is.
If you
So-
discard one, then
right,
you
if you
get
discard,
the,
exactly,
yeah.
sorry.
Well, the other nice thing about that mechanic is if you have a hand that's useless, this is also a very useful thing to learn, because now you can start discarding it and replenish everyone else's resources.
Right.
There's a use for every card.
Yeah.
And there's a second level of strategy too that I kind of had forgotten about, but remembered as we were playing, that even though I know what I could play on my turn, like I know I can play this 2 because you've given me enough hints, but I could just save it and instead like give someone else a clue on my turn because I know they don't know anything about their hand.
Yeah.
I'll be fine when it comes back to me. So
I love that when you had literally, you knew what every card in your hand was, and you could just play them every turn if you wanted to.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is a small memory aspect in that you need to remember what's in your hand, but it's not that hard. It's only 3 cards.
And you don't normally have all the information on all 3 cards anyway. So like you might have I have a 5. I have a 1. I have 2 green cards.
Yeah. Yeah, and with 4 cards, it does sometimes get a little bit... With 4
cards?
players, you do play with 4 cards.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. So the number of cards scales up with the number of players
Yeah.
because...
Why
Why does it scale
does
up?
it? That's a good question. Maybe because it's easier to...
It takes longer between
your
turns.
clues are harder to... Well, no, you get the same amount of clue tokens.
Yeah, I think it's because you're gonna have more cards in your hand linger, and there's gonna be more turns in between each of your turns.
So,
And so
it's
you can-
it's easier for people to let you know what is in your hand exactly.
Yeah. I will say 2-player is not great because you get in these weird loops of like, I'm giving you a clue every time.
Yeah.
You play something.
Yeah,
then
yeah,
I
yeah.
have to... Yeah. So definitely 3, 4, or 5, I suppose.
And 5 is 5
there's
cards.
5 is 4 cards.
5 is 4 cards. Okay.
Yeah. But I probably was playing 2-player wrong because I always thought it was 4 cards in hand
Oh.
from playing it with higher player counts.
Sure.
So yeah, the memory thing, yeah, it's actually like when you're first learning the game, pretty funny, I think. It creates some like funny moments where someone forgets what they had in their hand because enough happened in between turns, and then
They're more worried.
You can ask the question, what do you know about your hand? And then they answer, and you have to keep a straight face as they tell you something completely wrong.
Well, but here's one interesting thing that sort of came up, because there was a turn where I think you had a 5 and I had a 5, and we both knew that we had 5s. And in fact, I'd figured out exactly which 5 I had because I knew what was in Charlie's hand.
You had discarded a 5. We had a 5 out, and you knew it was in Charlie's hand.
And I knew that people didn't seem to be encouraging me to play the 5 because no one would tell me what color it was, which let me deduce exactly which color it was. But then if you then ask me, what do you know about what's in your hand? If I say what I know about what's in my hand, then you can go and use that to deduce what's in Charlie's hand.
Right.
And what this reminds me of is, are you familiar with the blue-eyed islander paradox?
Oh,
No.
we've talked about this.
Well, have we?
It's like, it's sort of, so imagine there's an island, right? And the islanders either have blue or brown eyes. And there's a rule where if you learn that you have blue eyes, you have to leave the island. And so, everyone's going about their day happy on the island. And then some outsider comes in and says, hey, by the way, I can see at least one person with blue eyes, and then leaves, right? Now, so the interesting thing here is the outsider has not provided any new information. But as it turns out, the revelation that at least one person has blue eyes, which, assuming there's, people know this already, right?
Right.
But just by saying that, it leads to a sequence of events, because these islanders are perfectly logical.
Perfectly. All islanders are. Really.
Yes, that will lead to all of the blue-eyed islanders leaving the island. And the paradox basically relies on the concept of common knowledge, where something can be widely known but not necessarily commonly known. So common knowledge means you know it.
Tangent alert.
You know it, and you know that everybody
I wanna see where
else.
this is going.
Yeah, common knowledge is you know something, and you know that everybody else knows it too. And so even if no new information is being revealed, you can use that to make deductions. And I think Hanabi has some fun instances where common knowledge becomes a thing. And it kind of makes me want to see more games where common knowledge is
Played with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where you come to an understanding, like you start out in a place where you don't know enough, and then you find some common knowledge.
Yeah.
Or,
Well, yeah. Like, I mean, the whole idea is that there are facts that people know, but they don't know that other people know. But then once they learn that other people know those facts, that changes their behavior.
So how, Trevor, you're holding a hand of Hanabi cards. Tell
I
us.
don't know what they have.
Okay.
But both of us know what you have.
Yeah. I just started holding them.
Oh, okay.
What kind of hint do you want?
Do I have anything useful?
No.
Perfect. That's my life. Not
Yeah.
really.
But I mean, that's what that reminded me of a bit.
Well, how would you design a game up around that, do you think?
I'm
Common knowledge,
not sure.
but widely known.
I mean, the Blue-Eyed Islander paradox makes me think of some form of logic game, probably, where similar to, I mean, the reason that it's similar to Hanabi is that in Hanabi you can see everybody else's cards but not your own. But then learning what other people believe gives you information about what's on your cards, or can give you information, because if they're not believing something that you think would be reasonable to believe, it might be that they have additional information from your card specifically that you don't.
Yeah.
So I think in general, I can't say exactly what it would look like, but a common knowledge, a game about playing with common knowledge would be something like that, where everybody else can see something about you that you can't, because then you can,
Yeah. Would Blood on the Clock Tower have some of that, or similar to Werewolf or things like that, where
No, well, I think...
or you could you make a game like that?
Yes, actually, because I mean, Blood in the Clock Tower and Werewolf are not like that because it's the other way around, right? Everyone knows their own role, but they don't know anyone else's
Right.
role. It would be like Blood in the Clock Tower if you could see everybody else's role, but not your own. So, like, you go around with your
You
role
have to figure
on your
out-
head.
Yeah.
Isn't that a celebrity game or something? You're trying to figure out what celebrity you are?
There's
Yeah.
there's
like
a
a
game
party
like
game?
that. I
Yeah.
don't know if that's a social deduction game necessarily, but now that I'm talking about it, I am kind of curious what a social deduction game would look like if you can see.
Probably be pretty fun. Because I think that celebrity game is fun and
Yeah.
funny, but it's not like the different celebrities tell you anything about what you have.
Right.
But
right.
if it was a
you-
numerical coordination game, but competitive,
Oh.
where you, yeah,
I would probably just go for a straight social deduction game. I don't know that I'd work in numerical coordination.
no,
at all.
sure.
Social coordination.
Yeah, but in the next episode, we'll have to talk about your game, though, that does use
Right.
numbers. And,
Yes.
yeah. So, back to Hanabi, though.
All right. We should
I
probably have
think-
takeaways for this game, huh?
We've been on a lot of tangents in this series. But
Thank you for
fun ones.
hanging out with us.
I think for my takeaway, I'm just going to say that, you can make a game that interacts with common knowledge by hiding people's own information from themselves, but not everyone else. And that I think that would be a cool direction for a game. So maybe I'll look into that.
Yeah.
I think my takeaway is how the clue system works and how giving someone a hint about their hand, you really still have to interpret what the hint means is the most fun part of the game. Because, like, yeah. And the fact that cards in your hand can go from very useful to suddenly not useful at all. Say someone else plays the same color one as you, and now your one is useless. So someone might have given you a hint that you had a one, and you have to figure out, is it because should I play this still, or should I discard it? So, like, yeah, the fact that, yeah, every game feels different too, because it's like we gave Ananda a hint that he had a 5 in his hand long ago, but then that whole pile was dead already, so
Yeah. So we
he
had to
could
discard
just
it.
discard it, sadly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I for my takeaway, I want to lean on that communication element, and I think with this style game, with these kind of numerical coordination games, having the communication be either a physical resource or just a restriction in general is really important, and how you go about that restriction. I really like how Hanabi handles it with it being a currency, like you're saying. But then you also can see other people's cards, which is very unique and a way of like them communicating what they have to you without knowing themselves what they have. And so you're able to kind of draw other deductions and things, from those elements. So yeah, I really like how they handle the communication in this game, and that you don't get to know what you have, but you have a lot of knowledge of what's out there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a combination of both of your takeaways.
Great. Cool.
But yeah, lives
Yeah.
as well. They do the lives thing as the mind does, right? Where if you mess up, you have so many mess ups, and then it's over. Mm-hmm. Which I think is a great way to encourage more risky behavior at first.
Yeah. Yeah, because, yeah, you might think, like, oh, it's a game where we're trying to get a high score.
Right.
Just play until you lose, but there needed to be that other factor of you screw up and you lose a life. Because
Yeah.
otherwise, like, I could see where there's a version where it was just like, oh, we lost that card. Mm-hmm. It's out of the deck. But yeah, having a premature ending to the game is a good thing.
Your hands get, I don't know what happens with the bomb going off, but
Yeah, this is it's kind of a dark scenario in fireworks.
Or the
building.
entire batch of fireworks all go off together at the same time, and that's not good because it happened all at once and it wasn't fun.
Look at you, Trevor, thinking about the theme here. there's nothing really else that I guess your fireworks are going higher and higher from 1 to 5. So, and their
from
colors
less intense to more intense.
Yeah.
You want to save the intense ones for the end.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, well, good job, Antoine Bauza. Cool game. So, until next time, unless anyone had final thoughts on Hanabi, no? Okay. Well, let's do our wrap-up episode next time on numerical coordination games.
Bum, bum, bum.
Hey, thanks for listening to The Tabletop Takeaway. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. So please tell your friends and visit our website at thetabletoptakeaway.com, where you can suggest games and mechanics for us to cover next on the show.